If you are waiting until you feel like forgiving someone, you are not following what God tells us in His Word. Mickey talks about the fact that you need to make a decision to forgive, and to stand by it daily. Thanks for spending some of your Tuesday with us here at Sword Box Ministries. Our verse for today is James 1:22. But be doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves.
Welcome back. We've been talking about forgiveness, and we've been talking primarily about deep wounds, when we've been hurt really bad by someone, how we go about this process of forgiveness. You know, after we accept that we must forgive, and then we look at how Jesus forgave us, I think the second thing we need to do is we need to realize we need to make a decision to forgive that person for what they've done. We need to remember we can't wait for the feelings to come along till we forgive them. Forgiveness is a decision. And the moment we make the decision to forgive that person, we are obeying God, and we can expect His help and His comfort, and for Him to begin to bring healing in us through this process. Whenever someone's really hurt us bad, it's not going to be gone in one day. That first time you come before God and say, I want to forgive, that first time in your heart you say, I'm going to forgive, you know, it may come back the next day, it may come back the next night, over and over. So forgiveness is a process. And when someone hurts us, we need to acknowledge we've been wrong, we need to acknowledge we must forgive, and then we need to make that decision that we're going to forgive. And I believe doing this all in prayer before God is a very important thing. We need to get in prayer with Him, speak it out loud, release some of that hurt, and maybe some of that anger we're feeling towards this person. You know, you may have to do this many, many times over the days and the months to come, or maybe even years if the wounds go very deep and the suffering's very severe. You know, eventually those feelings will line up with your decision and your obedience to forgive if you continue to bring it back to God each time those feelings of unforgiveness and anger and revenge rise up inside you. You need to stick with your decision to forgive, because you're not always going to feel like it. And then I think a third thing we think about whenever we're talking about deep wounds and having to forgive someone is that we need to realize we give up our right to pay this person back for what they did to us. 1 Peter 3:9 says, not returning evil for evil, but on the contrary blessing, knowing that you were called to this, that you may inherit a blessing. And in Romans 12 it says, repay no one evil for evil. Beloved, do not avenge yourselves, but rather give place to wrath. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. And that's not always an easy thing to do. So does that mean that we just sit around stewing over what someone did to us and just eagerly wait for God to zap them? Since we know God's going to avenge us, we just anticipate Him doing that and paying them back for what they did, and then when we see bad things happen to them, we begin to celebrate that? Not at all. Proverbs 24 says, do not rejoice when your enemy falls, and do not let your heart be glad when he stumbles, lest the Lord see it, and it displease Him, and He turn away His wrath from him. So we see clearly what not to do here. We don't pay them back or gloat when they suffer. Instead, Romans 12:20 tells us, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him a drink. For in doing so, you will heap coals of fire on his head. If you can't show the love of Christ to those who have wronged you, that is a form of revenge. We are commanded to love, and withholding that from someone because they hurt us is wrong. However, when we show God's love in spite of what they do, then they will, or should, be ashamed of their conduct. But we do it because God said to, not in order to shame them. I want to give you a quote today from Gandhi, and it says, you can't shake hands with a clenched fist. You can't shake hands with a clenched fist. And I think that's appropriate. We can't withhold forgiveness and continue to show the love of Christ to people. God bless you. I hope you'll keep coming back as we're talking about